This holiday episode of New Politics was released on the 9th of January, 2026, and produced on the lands of the Wangal and Gadigal people.
Welcome to our New Politics Holiday series, where we provide long-read audio articles from some of our best published essays from the year, and these are from the recently published book, The Monday Essays, and that's available from online bookstores, and you can get it directly from us at newpolitics.com.au. Paid Substack and Patreon subscribers will get it for free as well. And we've got a slight departure this week because a lot of people have been asking us about the merits of holding a royal commission into the Bondi attack from last December, when 15 people were killed by 2 gunmen, and the federal government has announced that it will hold a royal commission.
Today I announce that I will be recommending to the Governor-General in an Executive Council meeting that will be held tomorrow that a Royal Commission on Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion be established. This was endorsed by a meeting of the Federal Cabinet today. I have asked that former High Court Justice, the Honourable Virginia Bell AC, to serve as the Commissioner.
Whether one was held or not has almost become irrelevant because this process has been politicised beyond belief, and it doesn't really matter what Anthony Albanese does now. It's going to be seen as a sign of caving in to all of the political pressure that's been heaped upon him over the past few weeks. And as we discussed a few weeks ago, he's going to now end up getting the worst of both worlds, where he's going to keep getting attacked by his opponents on this issue and disappointing his supporters as well, and ultimately being hounded out of office because he was once a vocal supporter of Palestine, and it was his government that was the one that recognised the state of Palestine. And these actions, as far as the Zionist lobby is concerned, can never go unpunished. And there's already an independent review into the Bondi attacks, and that's being undertaken by Dennis Richardson, and he's a former public servant and diplomat. He's held long-term senior positions within foreign affairs and security, and appointed by both the Coalition and Labor governments. And he was also appointed by the Howard government as the ambassador to the United States. So he's got the respect and the support from all sides of politics, and his review will now become a part of the Royal Commission, and his task is to assess the actions of the Commonwealth intelligence and law enforcement agencies, mainly ASIO and the Australian Federal Police, to find out what these agencies knew about the 2 gunmen and whether there were failures by these agencies in being able to stop these people from committing their crimes, and what needs to be improved to deter these types of actions in the future, and whether that be looking at new legislation, new powers, more funding. Although based on what we know at the moment, it's hard to know how anything could have been done to fully stop these 2 people that were so highly radicalised and intent on committing these kinds of hate crimes. And I think the main point here is that there is a wide scope for this review, and it's going to be completed by the end of April. And that, to me, seems like it would be the best way to proceed because it's got that wide scope and it will be done very quickly. And as far as the Royal Commission is concerned, there's quite a few angles that we need to look at here. Governments are always reluctant to hold a Royal Commission unless the terms of reference are clearly defined and they've got a clear idea about what they actually do want to get out of a Royal Commission. And there is that old joke about governments only calling a Royal Commission once they know what the findings are going to be. And there's also that recent history of Royal Commissions usually being used for political purposes by the government of the day. And governments will never call a Royal Commission if they feel that there's going to be some blowback and if they end up being the target of that Royal Commission. So that goes without saying, I guess. But some commissions, like the Robodebt Royal Commission or the Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse by Religious Institutions, well, they were both very good commissions and called by Labor governments. But during both of those commissions, there was never any chance of any of that creating any blowback to the Labor government. The targets in those situations were primarily Conservative forces and the Liberal Party. Now, I'm not suggesting that these were cynical exercises, but there wasn't any real chance of there being any blowback for the Labor Party. And a similar sort of thing happened in reverse when the Liberal Party called those royal commissions into trade unions and the Pink Bats insulation scheme, where they were actually quite unnecessary and didn't actually find very much, but they were used to primarily beat up on the Labor Party. But this particular Royal Commission, and I don't really care either way, whether it's a Royal Commission or a review, as long as we have some kind of useful inquiry into the Bondi attacks. But this Royal Commission has got the potential to fully blow back onto the government, where it's not too sure what the outcome is going to be because it's been just so highly politicised from day one, which is what the Israel lobby has been doing ever since those attacks took place in December. They've turned this into a political attack and a political event rather than a tragedy that needs to be looked at clearly and methodically, and then for governments to try and work out what the best way of reducing the chances of this ever happening again. And a wide-reaching review probably would have been enough as far as I'm concerned. And it's not just the Israel lobby and the Zionists, it's the Federal Liberal Party and the New South Wales Liberal Party who are trying to get as much political leverage out of this as possible. And that's probably been the most disgusting part of all of this. And sure, you do want to have justice for the victims and for the families, but I'm just not sure whether what all of these agitators are calling for is the best way to achieve this. And we also have to remember that there was no Royal Commission for the Port Arthur massacres in 1996 or after the Lindt Café attack in 2014. So I think that there would need to be a bit of explaining as to why we didn't have a Royal Commission for those two events, but why we're having a Royal Commission for the Bondi attack. And I think we'd also need to know why the many calls for a Royal Commission into domestic violence against women in Australia, which I think is actually a far bigger problem than anti-Semitism, well, we need to know why that's never been fully investigated, or a Royal Commission into Islamophobia, or a Royal Commission into the mainstream media, which has been behind a lot of these politicised and partisan calls for this new Royal Commission. But one thing that has become more obvious is the behaviour and the interference of the Israel and Zionist lobby groups in Australia. And this isn't to diminish the events in Bondi last December. And we have to keep pointing this out because every time you start pointing out the behaviour of the extremist Israel and Zionist groups in Australia, well, you're accused of anti-Semitism. And I think that a lot of people have actually stopped caring about that accusation because it doesn't really mean that much anymore. And if you're going to start banning people for using the watermelon as a sign of Palestinian solidarity, or arresting people for using words such as globalise the intifada, well, I just think that you lose a lot of credibility once you start claiming that everything is anti-Semitic. And this also morphed into that PR campaign that's been running over the past few weeks, where we had all of those sports people calling for a Royal Commission with the obvious conclusion that if you're against a Royal Commission, well, you must be an anti-Semite. And most of the people who have been calling for a Royal Commission don't even know what one is, and they're not sure if they're calling for a Royal Commission into the Bondi terrorist attack, or one into anti-Semitism, or a combination of the two, or even what they're hoping to achieve from that. And they've also ignored the fact that the New South Wales government has decided to hold a Royal Commission. So why you would need to hold two at the same time hasn't been fully explained either. So I think the issue is that whether Albanese was going to hold a Royal Commission or not, and now he is, well, that's going to be politicised as much as possible by the pro-Israel and Zionist groups. And there's a lot of bullying going on where Josh Frydenberg was outraged with the suggestion that the former High Court Judge Virginia Bell was being proposed as the head of the Royal Commission. And once again, we see the bullying and unreasonable behaviour by people like Josh Frydenberg, who not only do they want to keep calling out for a Royal Commission, but now they want to set the terms for the Royal Commission and decide who's actually going to run it. And I just think that for many people, this sort of situation is unacceptable, where you get this unelected and influential group of people trying to call the shots. So this Royal Commission is now going ahead, but another Royal Commission that I would support is a Royal Commission into the role and influence of the Israel government and its security agencies within Australian politics. And I don't think that it's anti-Semitic or conspiratorial to suggest that, because during the week we found out that a Labor MP in New South Wales, Anthony D'Adam, who is also the convener of Labor Friends of Palestine, is in a dossier created by the Israel government, accusing him of promoting anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism when he's done nothing of the sort. And the Netherlands has also listed Israel as a country that poses a threat to its security, accusing it of interference in its internal affairs. And the Netherlands isn't some kind of radical Islamic state. It's a full member of the European Union and a good friend to Australia. So we can sort of see that there's other countries that are starting to call this stuff out. And maybe we could have a royal commission into the role of these extremist pro-Israel and Zionist groups in Australia, because we had yet another event where a Palestinian writer has been banned. And this time it's the Adelaide Festival, where the academic and author Randa Abdel Fattah has been removed from their Writers' Week lineup. And according to the festival board, which also includes the former Liberal Party minister Amanda Vanstone, it's because it's supposedly too culturally insensitive to have Randa Abdel Fattah speaking so soon after Bondi. And she was scheduled to speak at this panel in March. So you have to wonder, well, when will it be okay for Palestinian people to be able to speak again in Australia? And I guess the answer, as far as the Zionists are concerned, is, well, never. They'll never be allowed to speak in Australia. So I wasn't planning to go to the Adelaide Festival, but I'm definitely not going to go now. And it's yet another organisation that's prepared to ruin its reputation and damage itself just to appease the Zionist lobby group. And I would think that it would be worth having a royal commission into that to find out why this keeps happening in Australia, because no one seems to know what the answer is, and royal commissions are all about finding out the answers. So that's it for this episode of New Politics. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back for some more next week.